We want Chancey to say something. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, pop on.
No, go ahead, Chancey.
Hi, guys. I'm the Director of Marketing and Missions here at James L. West. So I just wanted to let you guys know a little bit more about what we offer. So we do offer residential care. So that's where they come and they live in our community. We have 24/7 of licensed nursing staff that stays here and takes care of them. We also have a respite program that we generally do for like 3 to 30 days, and we can do that either VA or private pay. So that's something for, those of you that are the full-time caregivers is a great option, especially with easing into the transition eventually, stuff like that. We do have our day program open here at our Summit location. We will be relocating it to the southwest side over by Harris Southwest, hopefully within the next couple of months. But that's a separate entity. It's open from 7:30 to 6, Monday through Friday. And it also does, they have breakfast, lunch, life enrichment all day, and as well as a nurse, so we can do medication management. We also, at the beginning of the year, will be doing short-term rehab stay for those with dementia, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's. So that's something to keep in mind in case your loved one has an issue where they need that skilled level of care. We will be doing a short-term stay after the new year on that. So if you need anything or want to know more about our programs, I know the education department does a lot with you all, but if you have questions about any of these that we've listed, please give me a call. It's 817-877-1199, and I'm option 1, or you can just ask to speak with Chancey, admissions, marketing, whatever you need. So I hope you all learned a lot today, and thanks, Holly and Jamie.
Thanks, Chancey. And before we get going, I also just want to let everybody know about the last 5 minutes. Judy Locke, who's here with us, she spoke last week. She's going to be talking a little bit about some personal experience with communication and behavior management with Dementia Care. Judy actually is a former high school and university teacher. She's a hospital chaplain with experience as a supervisor in clinical and pastoral education. And she has been a volunteer here at the West Center for the last couple of years, working with me and with Jamie. She had a loved one who was placed here at the West Center, and she has had lots of experience in dealing with dementia, and it just keeps coming. We get that, and the Lord does use us in mysterious ways. So let's get going, talking about communication and behavioral management and dementia care. Some of you who were on a little bit earlier, Judy and I were chit-chatting, and I said this program originally was about a 90-minute program because there's just so much to cover. So we're going to jump right in. We're just going to do a little bit of a preview. Many of you I've recognized lots of familiar names, but just as a reminder about what's going on with dementia, because that's where we have to go back and kind of reset our mind to what's happening with our loved one, what's happening with our clients, our residents, our patients, if we're a professional working in the field. Keeping in mind that definition of dementia. Whenever I go out and teach, Jamie and I go out and we teach hundreds, probably honestly thousands of people a year that we're in front of. And we can ask a room full, sometimes of professionals, tell me everything you know about dementia. And you know what they say? Well, it's memory loss. They forget things and they can't remember. Those are all three the same thing. It's pretty rare that we get very many people who can list some of these other things that happen. And in reality, there's about 36 common symptoms. Their brain is dying. It is brain failure. They're having a progressive impairment, and this is a terminal illness. So there's so much more to it than just memory loss. We like to use this graphic that dementia is that umbrella term, just like the word cancer is an umbrella term. When somebody says they have a loved one that has cancer, we say what kind or what type of cancer. When someone says they have a loved one that has dementia, well, what kind or what type of dementia? There's over 130 different kinds or types of dementia. We see 5 to 8 over and over and over. If you work in the field, you may see 10 to 12 throughout your entire career. We don't normally see those really, really rare ones unless you happen to be a neurologist, then you're going to see them. But we also have some things that cause reversible memory loss. Now, the technical term, the medical term is reversible dementia. We don't like that term because then people think, oh, we can reverse dementia. There are some types of memory loss we can reverse. Whenever somebody is severely depressed, when they maybe are in a major depressive disorder, we can have some memory loss during that time. We can have an infection and become septic and have memory loss during that time. We can have a drug interaction. We can have our thyroid is just out of whack, and we can have some memory loss, and we take our medications and everything levels out. That's not what we're talking about with dementia. When we're talking about Alzheimer's, vascular, frontotemporal, Lewy body, Parkinson's, all of those that we see, this is a memory loss that is progressive. And then as we know, there's so much more to it than just memory loss, because look at what's happening to that brain. The brain is beginning to die. It's brain failure. The brain on the left is a 3-pound brain. That is a normal brain of somebody who died in a car accident at the age of 70. The brain on the right is someone who died from the end stages of Alzheimer's disease at the age of 70. That's a 1-pound brain. How can we expect the person on the right to act like the person on the left? They would if they could. Those cells are beginning to weaken and they will eventually die. And depending on what type of disease they have is kind of the process, whether it's Alzheimer's disease or vascular, Lewy body, Parkinson's, or if it's a mixed dementia, they may have, we saw a brand new statistic that shows that mixed dementia is now number 2 most common type of dementia. Lots of people have Alzheimer's and vascular, Lewy body with Parkinson's. So they're going to lose their abilities. And part of what they lose is communication. And part of what we start seeing are lots of new expressions. That's the new term I'm using rather than behaviors. Lots of challenging expressions sometimes. Why is it happening? Because of what we're looking at right here. Now this picture, this is powerful. Because let's look at these language centers. Mm-hmm. They can't find the right word. You know, the thing, and the thing, and the stuff, and the stuff, and the thing. You know the thing. And they're getting aggravated at you because you can't figure out the thing and the stuff. They're aggravated because they can't figure out the thing and the stuff. And they know that they should know the thing and the stuff. Mm-hmm. Comprehension is lost. Or maybe I can read the word fork that you've put on that drawer so that I can help put things away, but I'm not comprehending that this is a fork, but I can still read the word fork. So the comprehension's lost. Or we may even start with some word salad. That will eventually come. We start seeing some word salad, usually about mid-stage of the disease, where they may be putting words together, but they're not making a sentence. Or we're starting to get into water. And there's the word. But there's still inflection. And we can still have a conversation with somebody who's right in word salad because they can still have really tell me more about that. We can still have a conversation. They may have some vague language, single phrases, because all of that vocabulary, all of those words that they've learned over the course of their life, they're going away. You've heard us talk about the theory of retrogenesis, and if you haven't, theory of retrogenesis is kind of like they're going back in time. We're going back to who we originally were. And we originally didn't have this great big vocabulary. And we didn't understand a great big vocabulary. So What did we do originally? We had lots of sounds and vocalizing. We may point or grunt when we needed something. But they also can get to where they can't even make their needs known because they might not even know what their own needs are. And so we say, "Are you in pain?" And they say with a furrowed brow, "No." But their body's telling us a different story. Or we say, "Are you hungry?" "No." And we sit food in front of them and they eat. Because they can't even tell us their own needs, but the needs are still there. And behaviors, most of the time, those expressions, there's an unmet need. And we're going to look specifically at the most common unmet needs. But look at what's preserved. Look at what's there. We don't want to just focus on what's lost. The ability to sing, because that's on the right side. That left language leads, day-to-day language, right rhythm remains, right rhythm remains. And so people can still sing well into the disease. Most people can still sing all the way to the end of their life. They can hum and sing. And they may be able to sing song, what we're talking about, getting in the shower now, here we go to the bathroom. And we do a sing song, what we're doing, and they can comprehend it better. It's amazing. Try it. Support group people will come on and say, "I felt so silly singing my husband through toileting, but it worked." Now we're in the bathroom and we're just singing in the bathroom. Automatic speech and social chit chat stays for a very long time. And that's why sometimes our family members who are out of town will go, "They're fine. I talked to them on the phone. We talked about the weather. We talked about the Cowboys. We talked about, and they were good." I said, "Well, tell me your conversation." So, "Well, it's really hot out there, isn't it?" "It sure is hot out there." "Those Cowboys are doing horrible, aren't they?" "They're doing horrible." You gave them the answers to everything, and they know social chit chat. So of course they sounded like they're fine. Come stay with them a little longer. Chit chat stays. That's why we can do that back and forth, but we're not going to go in and ask them, "What'd you have for lunch today?" "I didn't even have lunch, you stupid." And you might get one of these. Because you just asked them something that they can't recall, but maybe they know they should be able to recall it. And then you heard me use stupid. Those forbidden words stay, and that was a mild one. Curse words, sex talk, and racial slurs are stored on the right. Now think about why they're not stored on the left. We just said the left language leaves, and that's our day-to-day language. Hopefully, curse words, sex talk, and racial slurs are not our day-to-day language. And when we were a little child, they sure were not our day-to-day language. And when our parent, once upon a time, heard us say those words, and they said, "I better never hear you say that again," we had to store it somewhere. And so it's stored on the right. And they will use those words to get their needs met. But it is not pleasant to hear our loved one using curse words, sex talk, or racial slurs at all, especially if our name happens to be in the list of all those curse words in a sing-song voice. That's never pleasant. Here's kind of a cross-section of that brain that we're looking at. And this is that learning and memory center. So what's lost? Again, immediate recall is usually lost pretty early. What just happened? Being able to learn something new. Because sometimes families will get so aggravated because their loved one can't work this thing anymore. Well, this is new learning. In all of our lifetimes, unless there's some really, really young folks on here today, this is new learning. These cell phones are new learning, and they're eventually going to become, they're going to try to use them as a remote. And they're going to go away. They'll go away because that's new learning. They also lose relationships because relationships, again, kind of fall away in the order they came. So those grandkids and then those kids may go away pretty early because I haven't always had grandkids and kids. And I may have had a wife before this wife or a husband before this husband. But I've always been a son or a daughter. And so I might look in the face of my daughter and call her mama, because I've always had a mama. And that's where we on this side of it have to adapt and be very flexible to that. That means we're safe, because mamas are usually safe. Mamas and daddies are supposed to be safe. Not everybody has that story though. And that unfortunately comes out also as they're kind of going back. If there was trauma in their past, that trauma comes back. And that can cause some of these challenging expressions if there's been some trauma in their past. Because we lived through it once and we had the coping skills to get through it. And darned if they don't come back. So preserved ability, those long ago memories tend to stay all the way till end of life. But confabulation stays also, and confabulation is a big word for lies. The ability to tell lies and tell stories. That stays. So, and I've had families say, my dad never graduated from college. He's making that up. He's telling a lie. Whenever I'm chit-chatting with their dad, and their dad's telling me about he's got 5 degrees, and they're going, he doesn't have any degrees. And I'm giving the old eye going, tell me more about your degrees. If he thinks he has degrees, then we've got degrees. We're talking, we're chit-chatting. It's okay. He's needing to be able to sit in and have a conversation. Emotional memories are preserved because the amygdala is still intact, and that holds emotional memories. But look what else is intact: the ability to manipulate. Wow. That's one many of us wish that our loved ones would lose pretty early. I know I'm on that boat. If they could just lose the ability to manipulate, but they don't, and they're able to still manipulate for a very long time, or throw the guilt card out there. And then motor memories. Motor memories are preserved for a very, very long time. So let's look again with communications and behaviors and how they relate. Each of those behaviors that they're having, and you're getting copies of all these slides, so there's going to be lots of information on them, because again, this was 90 minutes. We brought it down to 60. So you'll be getting all of these. Each of these behaviors, each of these expressions they're having, they're communicating something. And they're going to differ from person to person. That's why we can have 70 people in here and have every one of them have, say, Alzheimer's, and we've got 70 different behaviors going on. They're coping and they're reacting the best way they can with the abilities that they have left. And you're going to hear me say that over and over again. I've got it on a sign in my office. A person with dementia is not giving you a hard time. They're having a hard time. They're doing the best they can. I know when we are in the middle of a challenging expression, a challenging behavior, it doesn't feel like it is ever going to end, but it is a stage. They will turn the corner because their brain's dying. And eventually they won't even know to say that word, or to throw that phone, or to do the things that they're doing in the bathroom. Look at that second bullet point. Dementia is taking away their means to understand the environment, what's being said, what is happening to them and around them, and how to express their wants, their needs, and their emotions. It's changing the way they communicate. It's not taking away the ability to communicate. It's just changing the way that they communicate. There are no medications that just fix this. There's no memory meds. We call Aricept, Namenda, Exelon, we call those memory meds. Those aren't memory meds. Those are symptom meds. They don't even work on everybody. We have to figure out, as caregivers and the healthcare professionals, how to use communication and distraction to best serve those people that are living with dementia. There are prescription medications that can be used on some behaviors. We tend to want to use those as a last resort. We tend to want to use those whenever it is a safety issue. Again, knowing that it is temporary. But if we can learn what triggered the behavior, because statistics show us that about 80% of the time, behaviors are triggered. And when we start figuring out that it was us triggering the behavior, or our voice or our tone or our facial expression, and their amygdala is still intact, so they can still read us, even after they have a flat affect, they can still read us. Or maybe it's the environment, maybe it's the lighting. Maybe it's that TV show that's on that they've always liked, but now we can't watch MASH because MASH does have some fighting scenes in it every once in a while. And that's what's triggering them every day at 4 o'clock. We had that happen. I had that happen in the day program where we watched it every day. And we had a couple of gentlemen that we started seeing some behaviors and we started tracking it. We're going to talk about how to do that. It was the same time every day. And MASH, those of you that remember, MASH is was the first dramedy. They called it a dramedy. It had some drama, but it's comedy. But there's operating room scenes and there's loud noises. And we tracked it and figured out it's that darn TV show. So think about what communication actually is. It's just that exchange of information between two people. And when we're talking, we're doing it right now. What are we doing? We're expressing either a want, a need, a desire, or knowledge, passing back knowledge back and forth, or feelings. But communication is actually more about listening than talking. And with people with dementia, we've really got to listen. And we're not only listening with our ears, but we're listening with our eyes. We become like a detective because it's their spoken word. There's typo, so spoken work. And it's the nonverbal message as well. Look at this right here. Communication breakdown. Words are only 7% of communication, and that's with everybody. Words are just 7%. Body language is 55% of communication, and our tone of voice is 38%. And because we know that their amygdala is still intact, hippocampus is going away, amygdala is still intact, that means they can still read tone of voice and body language. Words go away because that's hippocampus. But they're reading our tone of voice and our body language. They will always be able to sense emotions. And when I say always, I mean when they are imminent, about to pass away. I've watched it happen over and over and over and over again. I've had families, we're sitting in the room with someone as someone is passing away, and that family gets to arguing about something or fighting over who's going to get the grandfather clock. This is a true story. And I'll see that person start to furrow their brow. And they're imminent. They're within 24 hours of dying because they can still hear, hearing stays, and they can still comprehend tone of voice. It's important. The how is more important than the what. So let's think about what is nonverbal communication, what it looks like. In eye contact. Eye contact. Thank goodness with mask on, we can still have eye contact. And even with these things on, we can still smile. We can smile with these on. We've had to really learn to project our voice and enunciate our words when we have on mask, but we can still smile. Our posture is important as well. When we lean in, I had a whole class on this becoming a counselor about how to sit, my face, my expressions, my tone, how to get a look that is non-judgmental. And as a high school teacher for 20 years, I had to really work on watching my face. But when we lean in, it lets people know I'm listening to you. Because you know what we can't be doing? This thing right here. Yeah, I'm listening. Yeah, go ahead. We're not paying any attention because we're on that darn phone. Watching our facial expression. We teach our staff, and it's hard to do. You know, we may be sitting with someone who's imminent, and then we walk out of that room and we go turn this on. Because the other 19 people in that house need to see this. Because they're going to read this. Speaking of masks, one of the things that very early on we figured out, and it came about because of somebody on the support group said their mama was able to tell them there's bandits everywhere. She had stopped eating. She was self-isolating in her room, but she wasn't eating because she thought she was being attacked because every time somebody came in the room, she thought it was a bandit. Because who hides their face? Bad guys hide their faces. And she wasn't understanding. And we could tell her all day long while we were doing it, but that would need immediate recall. So we had to kind of stand in her shoes. Gestures are very important. So as the disease progresses, we're going to need to do things where we're going to stop using so many words. Those words are going to come down to maybe 2 to 3 words at a time, but we're going to pat the chair, squat ourselves and say, sit here. Or I'm going to pick up the fork, eat, eat. Almost like sign language. And if I sit square-shouldered or stand square-shouldered right across from them and do it, many times they will mirror my action. Now, on the other hand, they can also mirror and copy negative actions that I'm doing too, or that someone else is doing. So those of you who've been through the Dementia Live experience, we talk about how people will follow. So if I've got one person who decides I'm breaking that door down, all of a sudden I may have 5 people to decide to break that door down. But if I've got one person who decides, I think I'll go over there and play some bingo or get me some ice cream, then we may have 5 people because if they're doing it, I bet I'm supposed to be doing it. And we can do this at home too. One of my clients, when I worked with the Alzheimer's Association, really worked on her husband still being able to fix his own salad. So they had a small table. It was a table for 2. She'd sit right across from him and she would put on the croutons. He would put on the croutons. She would put on the bacon bits. He would follow her exactly what she did. That gives them independence and dignity. We don't want to stand over somebody with dementia and cut their food for them. They're not a child. If they're to the point that they need their food cut up, do it in the kitchen and bring it out. Their food's cut up and mine's already cut up too. They're not different. So behaviors equal communication. Think about this is with us too. The way we behave is a form of communication. It's not just people with dementia. Our behavior is the same way. They're doing the best they can with what they have left. And some behaviors need our attention and some behaviors do not. There are things we just have to get to where we let it go, let it go. And as the disease progresses, you'll look back on and say, why did I spend so much time worrying over if they were wearing pajama pants to church? Who cares? At least they wanted to go to church. Let them wear pajamas to church. Why did I spend so much time worrying about? There's things that we need to start letting go pretty early. If it's not a harm to themselves or a harm to others, it's just a change in their behavior. That is the disease taking place. So there are things that need our attention and things that don't. And if it's a safety issue, it needs our attention. We meet them where they are. They're trying to leave at night. They're going to the door. Then we cover that door up. Or we put a lock up really, really high or really, really low. Because a person with dementia doesn't tend to look really, really high or really, really low. They tend to look right here. Or they think we've got other people in the house because they're seeing them in the mirror and it's really them that they're seeing. So we take down the mirrors. Who cares if we've had that mirror up for 20 years? Take it down. We're not going to argue with them about it, or we cover them up. Our response is actually what can make the situation better or worse. They're not giving you a hard time. They're having a hard time. Say that over and over. Here's that list of basic needs that we talked about. There are some fundamental human needs. They do not go away because a person gets dementia. It's easy for us to say something like, Mom, go in there and sit down. I'm making lunch. Let me just do it for you. And you know what Mom may have just heard? You don't need me. You don't know how to do it right. That may be what she heard. When we're trying to get it done, because maybe Mom gets in the way, or maybe she doesn't do it right. But what if we let her sit there and just stir something, or toss a salad, or open a can, or take stuff out of the dishwasher and put it away? It doesn't matter if it's not in the right place. For goodness sakes, we can go put it back in the right place later. That's what people will say, but they don't put them in the right place. Whose right place? My right place. That's us. That's our expectations. They need to feel needed. They need to feel like they have a purpose. And sometimes that'll trigger a behavior. Go in there and sit down and watch TV. I'll do it. And then we find them rummaging through something, tearing something up, going out the door. Where'd that come from? They asked to be needed. They asked to contribute. And we didn't let them. Emotional security. That's where we also have to make sure that we don't get to the point where our loved one just becomes a task. They're never a task. That's still mom, dad, husband, wife, friend, brother, sister, whoever it is, clients, patients, residents. They're not a task. We want to make sure that we're still connected to them and that our identity doesn't just become caregiver. They need to be able to remain social. That's why we are such big proponents of day programs. And it's funny to have families come and say, my dad will never. My dad's never danced. He's a Baptist. And we send pictures of dad just a dancing. He's having fun because right rhythm remains. And he's being social and he's with other people who are dancing or doing yoga. We do chair yoga in the day program. So they've never done yoga in their life. There's no way. We've got 25 people over there doing yoga, loving it because everybody's doing it. So let's do it too. And then they're sleeping good at night because they're busy all day. Acceptance and belonging and connection is a basic human need that doesn't go away. Respect, esteem, and significance. I made a difference. My life mattered. It's important to tell people their stories when they don't know their stories anymore. So what are some risk factors that can increase behaviors? Being in a new environment. So when we have to go to that doctor's appointment or we have to go to the busy store, that's why if we are going to get out and go to the store, let's go really early. Let's try to go early. Let's not go on Saturday and Sunday. If we can, let's get out and go early on a Tuesday. Being in a new environment. This comes up a lot at the holidays but we've always gone to cousin so-and-so's house. Well, but we hadn't always been at this stage of dementia. So this year, people are coming to our house during that time of day that's best for our loved one. And we're not even going to be in the living room. We're going to take turns coming in and seeing dad, one or two at a time, so that he can still be in his chair watching his shows or feeding the birds he's going to stay on his schedule. We're going to work around his schedule. I know it's not tradition. Traditions change. We accommodate the disease. They can't. They would if they could. They didn't do anything to make this happen. Undiagnosed pain, number one cause and reason for an unwanted behavior. Number one. And again, you may ask them, are you in pain? No. But they're holding themselves, or they're leaning towards something, or they've got a furrowed brow or a deep frown. UTI, urinary tract infections, number one cause of a pain that's hard to explain. Does it burn when you pee? No. They can't tell you. They can do dipstick tests at Care Nows, your doctor's office. But again, doctor's office is one of those places that's hard to be. We need to be able to call ahead of time and tell them, we're here. We're going to hang out in the car until it's time to come in. Would you please call us? And we're going to come right in so that we can just go right in. People will work with you when you tell them what's going on. You're honest about it. Physical problems, boredom and loneliness. When somebody gets bored, they'll find something to stay busy. And that something might be a negative, what we would consider a negative behavior. Maybe they don't consider it. I'm looking for something to do. That's why I pulled everything out of all these drawers in here, because I'm looking for something. A negative approach from us. One of the very first times I ever got hit, and this was my mistake, I bent down to tie somebody's shoe, and I didn't tell her I was doing it. I just reached down and did it, and I got a boom right on the back of the head because I just leaned right down in front of somebody and didn't say, oh my goodness, look, I think your shoe's untied there. Do you mind if I? And went about it in a completely different way. Learning experience. That was my fault. That was my fault. And then tiredness later in the day, sundowning, whenever somebody is getting tired, if they didn't eat well during the day, if they got aggravated, if they got mad, and that amygdala is holding that feeling throughout the day, we can really see some sundowning. Some other causes for unwanted behaviors that they're just not understanding what we're trying to get them to do. That's when we know we've got to change. Had an adult daughter call me one time. Her dad was in the day program and she was crying. They were very late coming. They weren't at the time they normally came. And she called and said, I walked in and Dad was sitting on the edge of the bed with his arms in his pant legs. And I realized today that I've got to start helping my dad get dressed. Because the day before, all she had to do was set his clothes out and he knew what to do with them. And I reminded her that tomorrow he may know what to do with them again. But he is probably turning the corner. Go in there and get dressed didn't mean anything because he didn't know exactly what to do. He knew something went this way, but it wasn't those pants anymore. And it was time for her to set that alarm 15 minutes earlier. That wasn't his fault. Or get in the car. Well, what does get in the car mean? There's a lot of steps to getting in the car. Maybe we're now to the point we have to open the door and we pat the seat and say, sit down. And it can just happen one day. And we change, they can't. We can have behaviors when they're overstimulated. And again, holidays, get-togethers can happen. And usually it's us, we are the ones that are needing that to go well. And we're focused too much on, but I need to have it. A last Thanksgiving, a last Christmas, a last birthday. And we end up with them having a really challenging expression or behavior because we were making it more about what we wanted, not what they needed. And holidays are going to be here before we know it. We got a whole program we'll be doing on holidays coming up. Mirroring others' moods, misinterpreting what's being said. We have someone, they're helping me take my clothes off. We're in the bedroom. What must that mean? And they mistake that for sexual activity. when we're actually trying to change their clothes. But we're in the bedroom and we're taking our clothes off. And you can see where that would be a mistake they might make. Sometimes we may be asking them to do something that they just can't do anymore. I used to do assessments on residents, and I would go in and have to ask them to write sentences and do all kinds of fun things. Y'all know about the clock, or doing the clock and doing all those fun tests, count backwards from 100 by sevens. I dare any of you to do that. Yeah. And boy, have I had things thrown at me, curse words. And you know what they were saying? I can't do it. They were all saying the same thing. Some were able to say, you do it. Some were able to say, I don't work anymore. Okay. But some were able to pick something up off the desk and throw it at me. And they were all saying the same thing. Oh, that last one there, desire to leave and go home or to meet former obligations. If they got off at 5 every day for 40 years and they're back at a time when they think they're working, then at 5, it's time to leave. And if there's coats hanging by the door or keys by the door or purses by the door, then that must mean it's time to go. Those are things we can change. We're never going to want to argue with somebody with dementia. If you hadn't figured that out yet, we don't argue with somebody with dementia. Clenched fist, frowning, scowling, rapid eye movements. We want to try to get away from congestion and noise, watch their body language. And then we want to learn how to decode behaviors. What caused the behavior? And we're going to give you some questions here. So we've already had the behavior. How can we go back and decode it? Why is something bothering them that never bothered them before? Could it be that it's just taking them longer to process? Keeping in mind, toward the end of the disease, it could take them up to 20 seconds to fully hear, process, and do. 20 seconds is a long time. Most of us, after 5 seconds, are saying it again. And we might say it in a different way. And we might change our tone. Because I'm in a hurry to get out the door. Now, come on. And then we have a challenging behavior and wonder why. We didn't even give them time to hear it, process it, and do it. I've watched people, some of y'all have heard me say, I've watched people fall on video, watch them fall, hit their face, and then put their arms out. Because they didn't process that they were falling until after they landed right on their face. Then they put their arms out. Time. Got to give them time. Here's one of the ways that we can decode that behavior. Journal it out, write these things down. What was happening right before the challenging behavior? Where is it happening? When does it happen? Who is involved? What makes it worse? And did anything make it better? And sometimes you can figure it out. It is that show. It's every time that so-and-so comes in the room. It's when I say, it's when we mention the word. You can track it many times. You can figure out the trigger. This is another great chart. And again, you're going to get all of this. We can sit down, and if you're a healthcare professional, this is a great thing to make a copy of and even use in care plan meetings, where we can sit and look at who were they as a person. And my best story on this was that I had somebody who was having some severe challenging behaviors, expressions, severe, screaming, why, until she was hoarse. And then we started putting together, she was a nurse. She's an RN. She got louder when the med cart would go by. Why are you doing my job? Is what she was saying. So the nurse started bringing her along, and she'd put the pills in the cup and she'd show him the screaming stopped. We weren't treating her as a nurse. She's still a nurse. Who are they as a person? If it was something that they didn't like before, Maybe they will start liking fish. Maybe they still don't like fish, and we're trying to get them to eat fish. What's their level of dementia? How are they feeling? What's the weather? We just had a really bad storm the other day, and there were lots of challenging behaviors going on. I had some challenging behaviors myself. People with dementia had challenging behaviors. It's a real thing whenever the weather changes. Sometimes we got to just close those blinds so that we can't see all of that going on. And then what are you communicating? What's your body language saying? What is the environment? Are they too hot? Are they too cold? And again, they might not be able to tell you, but I can take my clothes off. And sometimes they'll take their clothes off when they're too cold, because they're just saying that something's not right. Something doesn't feel right. And then looking for those patterns and routines. If I have always been a bath person at night, and I get placed in a facility and they try to give me a shower in the morning, you're probably going to get one of these, because I don't take showers in the morning, but I can't tell you that. We got to know patterns and routines. So then asking the what now? Why do you think they're doing what they're doing? Gathering that information, gathering those clues, looking back on that chart that we just talked about, and then we're going to take action. What are we going to try? Come up with some ideas. And you want to come up with the ideas before we're back in that situation. We don't want to make decisions in crisis. We can't always figure it out, and what works today might not work tomorrow. But if we have got our toolkit, is what we call it, we've got us a toolkit. We've got several things that we can try. And redirection is going to be number one. Redirection. A person with dementia can have one thought at a time. One. If we can get them over onto another thought, we can get them distracted. We've got to try to catch them before they're ramped up to here, but we've got to try to get redirected. Number one, food, music, animals, children. Food, music, animals, children. Food, the sweeter the better. They're losing their taste, but thank goodness the taste that stays for most people is sweet. Ice cream, God's gift. Their music, not our music. Their music. Don't play them your music, especially if you're from a different generation, because you might get one of these if you do that, because that's just a bunch of racket anyway. Make sure you know their music. And if you've got their music and ice cream, look out. Pull up YouTube videos of little puppies playing, baby animals playing, children laughing. Have you seen my grandbaby? I've got the sweetest, you want to see this. I got to show you this grandbaby. I know you can take that door. I'm going to help you tear the door down. I don't like the damn door either, but I was just going to show you this grandbaby. Would you look at this? Just get that eye over here. Look at that baby. Look at that puppy. And here comes somebody along with some ice cream at the same time. If we can just get them distracted. But if they can't be redirected, we probably are going to have to back off or get another face, because it might be us. And it might be our approach, especially if we're getting upset. We may have to call a friend. We may have to call a neighbor. That's why we cannot keep this secret, what we've got going on in our house. Could you come over here and just sit with them for a little bit? Can we get them out in the backyard? Having that routine is going to be so important. Routine, and structure. Watching our nonverbal communication. Do not try to be reasonable or rational with somebody with dementia. We looked at the brain. You know what's held right here in executive functioning? The ability to be reasonable and rational. It's gone. It goes away. Mom, you can't stop at the stop light, look both ways and go. Well, why not? I've been driving 40 years. I know what I'm doing. Can't do that. You're never going to win that game. You're going to make yourself nuts. That's what you're going to do. active listening, and then making it about us. I go to pick up my mom for her doctor's appointment. I've texted her that I'm on the way. It's on the calendar. I've even called her from the car. I knock on the door and she says, "Why are you here?" Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry. I forgot to tell you about that doctor's appointment. About me. Do you know there's a Brahms on the way? I bet we can stop at Brahms on the way there and Sonic on the way back. And we do. Distraction. Whatever we got to do. Also, not making assumptions about their ability, using that positive body language. We've got to slow down and stay calm. Call them by name. And it may mean that we don't call our mom anymore. We may call them by their first name, and that's very, very hard. But they may not respond to the word mom, especially if they don't think they're a mom. They may respond to Mary because they've always been Mary. One thought or question at a time. We're never going to reason or confront or remind them that they forgot or use that word remember. Don't use the word remember. Oh, I got to hurry up here so I can give Judy a few minutes here. We do want to use the word okay. Okay doesn't mean you're right. Okay means I heard you. It's called validation therapy. We're validating. You're the one that took all my money. Okay, let me call the bank. I'm not calling the bank. I'm calling nobody, or I'm calling another phone, or I'm calling a friend. There's that word active listening again. What they're saying might not be what the message is about. The words that are coming out of their mouth may not be what they're trying to tell you at all. When I have somebody up at the desk and they're screaming about pens, and we're handing them everything in the world that writes, and they're getting madder and madder and madder. And we finally said, "Show me a pen." And he pointed at a Pepsi can. Show me. What does a pen do? Sometimes they can do that. The pen. Oh, he's talking about some kind of drink. But he's lost the word. We have to know how to communicate because they're communicating the best way they can. Active listening. Again, using words like this: tell me more, show me, okay, and then therapeutic stories. Alzheimer's Association calls them fiblets. You may call them lies. They're therapeutic stories. That darn cell phone, because you know they keep calling us all night long after we've placed them, and we thought it was a good thing for them to have the cell phone, and sometimes those chargers break. And darned if we can't find another charger. I'm looking though. I've got one ordered. It's on back order with Amazon. I think they're giving ice cream over here. Therapeutic stories. Fixing whatever the problem is. Those people up there kept me up all night. Boy, they kept me up too. We're going to get them evicted. I'm going to mirror their emotion. I'm calling. We're going to get them evicted. I was getting ready to go down to Brahms to get me a cherry limeade. You want to go? So that we don't loop back to those people that kept us up all night. Keeping in mind that the vulgar language, the swearing, the sex talk, and the racial slurs are all very normal. It's upsetting, but it is very, very normal. They're using what's left. It's not them, it's the disease. We've got to be kinder than what we feel. We've got to actively listen, keep a routine, don't overreact. Keep in mind that all of their behavior has a purpose and try to identify their triggers. Dementia is changing their ability to communicate their unmet needs, but it doesn't take away their needs. Their needs are still there. Judy, I'm going to ask you to unmute. Judy is going to take just a couple of minutes here. We've got about 3 minutes left, and just share a personal experience with communication and behaviors.
And thank you for inviting me to come. I spent a lot of time trying to fix things in my relationship with my colleague and best friend. We were both teachers and devoted to that. That had been our career path for all our professional lives. We did a lot of teaching together, and we did a lot of planning together. And it was actually in that venue that I began to realize that there were things that were wrong. My difficulty, and I want to share this with you, is that I really carried two myths with me. When I did understand, thanks to a doctor, that Anne had dementia. She had been very ill with congestive heart failure and really did not recover well from that. But one of the things that I began to try to do on my own as a teacher, of course, who would know nearly everything, is that I tried to correct her mistakes or fill in words for her that she couldn't recognize anymore. And that was one of the earliest things that I recognized, that I saw. The other thing is, but the one myth that I thought was that that dementia was about memory loss, and that I could take care of her to the end of her life, and that because she was a very public person, nobody needed to know about this. All of those are such sad myths that really can contribute to your suffering as a caregiver, and it can certainly contribute to your loved ones, suffering and sadness as someone with dementia. I first recognized what I really began to understand fully about dementia when we would do planning together. We taught together a lot in our church. We were volunteers in a couple of venues where we taught people things. And she began, we'd always do our plannings in the evenings, and she'd say at a certain time, "That's it, I don't have any more energy. We're not going to finish this tonight." And I'd say, "Well, just kind of tell me what your ideas are." Always the fixer, always trying to, satisfy the need to do the work that we needed to do in order to help others. She'd say, "No, I just don't have any more energy. I can't do this anymore." And so what I began later in the disease is that what she was really telling me was that she didn't have the energy because she couldn't grasp what it was that she was trying to communicate. One of the most wonderful things that happened, though, was that many of the students that she had were Spanish speaking, and I'm not Spanish speaking. But we learned to utilize their support and their love of her to help her teach a class with them. And they would do that for her and for themselves. And it really helped to make their community stronger. I just think, as Holly says, that we've got to pay attention to what we're seeing and hearing from our loved ones, and we need to go where they are, not try to bring them to us. So I wish you well. I hope that you will make use of our programs, and that you will form community with each other for support.
Thank you, Judy. I appreciate you sharing that personal story about your walk through dementia. We are so glad everybody was here today, and you will get the PowerPoint, you'll get information about our upcoming programs, and you'll get information about the CEU certificate of attendance, and anything else, Jamie, that I am forgetting or leaving out right here at the end. You'll get all of that later today, so be on the lookout for it. We appreciate you being here. See you next time. Have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.
Bye.